We will provide the slides for you to review. Their slides that we'll provide are much more elaborate than the ones that we're going to go over here today. And would be glad to take any questions that you have. You can send that in the Q&A feature, as well as, and then we'll review the questions as they come in, or at the end of the conversation as well. So again, thank you so much for your time and for joining. This is College Hiring Outlook 2023. I'm your host, Stuart Meese. I'm a director at ROCS Grad Staffing. And just to give you a little bit of background about who we are a company that focuses on helping our clients hire recent college graduates having 0 to 5 years of experience. We've been around for about 20 years. Our founders created it out of a dorm room when they were students at George Mason University in Northern Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C. And you can see we hire a lot of different types of positions, a lot of industries and job functions that we work with. And we focus only on this 0 to 5 year, nothing else. So it's a perfect match for us to connect with this particular survey. So let me tell you a little bit about this survey, as Don was alluding to earlier. For the previous 51 years, Michigan State University's Career Services Office worked with the Collegiate Employment Research Institute there to produce this. Michigan State took a step back as the director of the CERI, a gentleman by the name of Phil Gardner, who's been a tremendous mentor to myself and so many in this space as he stepped down. And ROCS Grad Staffing, my firm, stepped up to say, we want to keep this going. So we partnered with 200 to 300 career centers from across the nation. They disseminated this to their employers who hire their students. And we collected this survey data in September of 2022, which is important to remember, and I'll come back to that. So a couple of takeaways we hope that you'll have at the end of this. One, we'll understand some of the recruiting trends and provide some clarity during this recruiting chaos that we're in now. We hope that will be something for you to take home, as well as benchmarking against about 2,000 employers nationwide. So you get a sense at what is a critical mass of folks thinking about this particular cycle for college recruiting. And we want you to have some really good insights that you can apply as you start up the 2023 hiring season. We know a lot of budgets get reset at that particular time. So we want you to be able to use this information and apply it within your organization. So here's a quick overview. Told you a little bit about the report. We're going to go over the hiring outlook, talk about it from industrial sectors, discuss from a geographical standpoint, academic discipline, a little bit about salaries, recruiting strategy, college recruiting platforms, Q&A, next steps, and then I'm going to turn it over to Don, and he's going to share some more about some of his endeavors as well. So we'll go through this rather quickly. So here are the characteristics. So I said there was over 2,000 respondents. We were only able to use about 1,500 of those because some came in late and some came in complete and weren't statistically relevant. So these were 1,555 responses. 43% of those recruited throughout the United States. They're a national employer. Typically, they would be larger employers, is what we feel. 57%, they just did, very regionally. 63%, or about 5 out of 8, about 1,000 or so, they were considered small employers, less than 500, the way we determined it. And then the remaining were 500 or more employees. So all the NAIC classification industry codes were captured. We narrowed that down to help with the survey collection. How many organizations were interested in each of the types of students, whether that's 4-year publics or privates, whether that's technical, two-year public community colleges or technical institutions, HBCUs, or those that just wanted credentials or certificates. And that's going to be a big theme in this discussion. So let's get right into it. So overall perceptions of the market is that it was very good, 3.73 average rating, 23% indicated it was excellent, 38 very good, 29 good, 10% fair to poor. Now remember, this is September when they were taking this. A lot's changed since September with interest rates, geopolitical stuff, elections, et cetera, et cetera. But one interesting thing here is that we asked the same question to the people. First one was more general. This one was specific to their industry. So accounting firm would answer this as relates to accounting, or consulting firm for consulting, or hospitality. They actually felt that it was much better within their industry than overall, which would indicate that they feel that there's a lot of competition that is occurring within their industry and making it very hard to find talent. So how does this stack up from other years? So this goes back to 2008. The same question is asked and it was disseminated the same group. You can see it, the Great Recession was since 2008. That was the most pessimistic over that time. You can see how it increased rapidly, and then it dipped again during COVID, and then it came back last year. This point in 2021, a lot of us feel that this was the absolute best year ever for college recruiting because of a lot of pent-up demand. The vaccine came out and people became a lot more comfortable. And you can see here it's slightly less there. So still very good historically, at least over 2008. So it's still a very good market moving forward. So what do we see by each one of these educational attainment levels? So the first one I want to look at is credentials and certificates. So 21% of the respondents said they don't hire people with just the credential or certificate, but 79% said that they do. And of those 79%, look here, 31% say that they're going to hire more than last year. And the overall hiring is up 8% year over year. So you'll see that this is a significant theme that is happening right now. What we believe is, especially smaller employers, they're not able to compete for the four-year talent against some of the larger organizations. There's just not enough to go around, and people are beginning to look specifically for the skill set that they need to keep their organization going. Even the founder of LinkedIn, in an interview last week, said something very similar. This is turning into a credentials and certificates labor market now. We know all the issues associated with the rise of cost of higher education and the student loan payback issues that we're seeing here. So you can see kind of a little shift here that people are getting a lot more comfortable with credentials and certificates out there because you have a specific skill set that you're getting. The organizations and the industry knows what a person can do with that, as opposed to having some type of degree, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So that's what it looked like for credentials. This is what it looks like for associate's degrees. The same amount of people said that they hire associate's degrees, but interestingly enough, excuse me, they're not hiring at the same rates as they are credentials and certificates. Interesting. Only 23% are hiring more. Now that's good compared to the 31% in the previous slide. And then overall hiring will be up, but not at the same level. So how does this compare to bachelor's degrees? So almost everyone in the survey is looking for bachelor's talent. You can see that they're also looking to hire more, and you're seeing that it's going to be up also during that time. So overall, very good outlooks. We didn't include some of the master's programs. We have this in some of the other slides, but those three that I just mentioned, that's where most of the growth is. With the master's program, there's not as much growth that is occurring right now. And you would feel that would necessarily be the case. Not as many students are going into it when the labor market is really high. Now in a recession, you see see the opposite. More individuals go into these master's programs as opposed to going straight out of college because of the access to jobs. So let's look at it now in terms of industrial sector. And again, I'll just say, if you got a question, just put it in the Q&A and I'll get to it either during these individual section breaks or at the end. So let's look at an industrial sector. So for the purpose of this survey, we combined the ones that you see in normal font into a bold font. So we combined some of it together to make it easier for our survey respondents and then for us. And so that gives you a little bit of an overview of what that is. I'm not going to go through all of these today. I'm just going to pick out a couple. First of those would be the service sector. And you can see that within the service sector, all of them are hiring bachelor's degrees, 31% increase, about 7%. That kind of mirrors what we're seeing, nationwide from the couple of slides ago. But again, look at this credentials and certificates, still up and an increase from that. All right, we know that credentials and certificates don't take as long as an associate's or bachelor's degrees. It's much more defined in that, and it doesn't cost as much in order to get it, and it's very laser focused into a particular skill set. Now employers are beginning to say, hey, I kind of like these individuals. So you see that here in the service sector. Finance and insurance, as you would probably imagine, more of them are looking for that bachelor's degree. But still, look at the credentials. It's coming on as well. There's an increase there. Professional business and scientific services. I think consulting would be an example of this here as well. So again, holding its own, the credentials and certificates compared to bachelor's degree when you're going through this. And again, as a reminder, this is not someone that has a bachelor's degree and also a credential and certificate. This is just individuals with a credential or certificate and no other form of degree. So let's look at geographical considerations. So in the printout, I'm going to give it to you by region, but since we had a national audience here today, I'm just going to go through a couple of slides at the beginning. So these are employers who recruit talent throughout the United States. I would imagine this is where you're going to see more larger employers because they have offices all over. But again, the theme there, credentials and certificates, continuing to increase, even though bachelor's is hiring also more as well. But again, look at that increase of those employers that are hiring throughout. So if you're looking for that skill set, if you're looking for something to refine yourself or take a slightly different direction, this survey is indicating that employers are becoming more and more open to that moving forward. And here's what we see from those regionally, which you would imagine may be a little bit off that other number because they're probably smaller. They're not going to as many places. You can see how the MBA, master's and professional degree, the change is a lot less. You don't have as many people interested in those as you have the others as well. And in fact, look at the MBA. There's a negative component there with that. Of those that are recruiting regionally. Again, in the slides that we'll share with everyone who has registered for this, we go into it by 10 different regions. So if you're at a particular region, you want to see that, you'll be able to look at it in a much more smaller environment. And here are the regions that we have listed there. So the next slide is one that I've enjoy talking about. It's based off of academic disciplines that students are getting. So we ask employers, and they could do more than one if they wanted, what academic disciplines are you interested in? And so if you see on the left-hand side there, these are majors that are in very high demand. And I'll tell a quick story. When I was in career services at Virginia Tech, I was also at Wake Forest. I've been a recruiter, worked in workforce economic development. I was taken aback by the fact that not all majors are equal. Some majors have a higher probability of landing higher level jobs than others. You see a lot of students not being fully aware of that. They just think if I get a degree, I'll be okay. But no, it's actually getting a specific type of degree. So some years back when I was at Virginia Tech, we looked at all the on-campus interviewing that was occurring, and this was pre-COVID. And about 90+% of all on-campus interviews were of three groups: business, engineering, and computer science. And that consisted of about 45% of the student population. So over half of the students were getting less than 10% of the interviews. And so it's something that has stuck with me, that I share a lot with others. And you'll see in this study and many others that this is what's in demand right now. Now, when we looked at certificates and credentials, we didn't look at specific ones. It was just, did you have a general one? So it could have been health, could have been IT, it could have been many others as well. But this is what employers are looking for. So if you have a student that's thinking about going into a particular major, something that you may want to think about and share with that individual. And again, I'm not saying that these individuals can't do as good a job as these others. It's more of a branding issue. It's what the employers who are the super customer, that's what they are looking for. That's what they are determining works best within their organization. So if you look at all majors, so there's some companies say, yeah, I'll just take anybody that has a college degree. I'm okay with that. You can see that it's basically the same. There's probably that 13% that still have this stigma. I really don't want that. Yeah, I really need that college degree. But you can see that's basically mirror image there between certificate, credential, and bachelor's. When you look at accounting, and this was a little bit surprising, you hear folks wanting more master's level students. And I would imagine this, it takes into consideration, there's a lot of companies that were having corporate accounting jobs, not the public accounting firms, where they want that master's degree. They want that 150 so they can sit for the CPA exam. But you can see the demand there for accounting, and look at and then look at it specifically with the credentials and certificates and how those are increasing as well. Arts and humanities, again, a major that's typically not in demand when it comes to an employers, but this particular year tells us something different. I would think that it has a lot to do with individuals not able to get, or there's not as many majors that are available in business, IT, engineering, and so forth, and they're looking for people that maybe they can train and do a fine job in. And I fully believe that arts and humanities students can do that. Again, it's more of a branding issue, but look at pairing that with a credential or certificate. That seems to be like a theme or a path, that if you have an arts and humanities and you feel like you're not getting the type of job that you want, pair it with a credential or certificate. And I think you could really enhance your employment opportunities significantly. All right, next slide here is business. Probably no surprises there when you're looking at business. Again, you can see how the master's programs are much further off compared to the credentials and certificates, but credentials are hanging in there strong. A little bit of a decline in terms of the number hiring, only 76% compared to 80 some in the previous slide there. And then the demand, the skill sets that are always going to be in demand regardless of the economy, and that's the computer science and IT. I actually thought it would be much greater than that. However, you can see the changes there as well. So that's what it looks like in terms of academic discipline. Again, if you have a question, feel free to add it to the Q&A session, and we'll go over that with you. Now, everyone's favorite topic is salary. This one surprised me. The first bullet, 41% of all respondents indicated their organizations would hold starting salary offers at the same level as last year. Phil and I said we need to go back to those same 41% and see what their retention and attrition rates are, because that seems like a recipe for disaster by not increasing that. Again, this was September when we asked this question. 59% said that they would increase it, and what we found is that the average was around 8.5%. And as this last bullet indicates, that's right around what the inflation rate, I think it came in recently like 7.7. So people are increasing, have the sense to know that, hey, I need to at least raise wages up to a rate to meet inflation. probably as a minimum. And then in this fourth bullet here, you can see that even some of these, the increase, 25% of the employers had an increase of over 10%, which would be a real net gain for them as well. Other things that students or graduates were offered. This third bullet comes to mind about mental health coverage that's supplemental to an existing health plan. We had one public accounting firm that talked about their benefits of offering this and how well it was received by their students that they were recruiting at that particular time. So you can see that mental health coverage as a benefit for these young individuals, employers are offering that more than signing bonuses, despite the increase in the demand for these individuals. So I thought that was a curious thing to add. So moving along to recruiting strategy, you know, when we're coming out of COVID and all, you had all these benefits of online and what we're doing right now, are employers ever going to come to campus? Well, the resounding answer is yes, they did come back. It was going to be much more hybrid. What we're finding from some of our colleagues at career centers is that they definitely want to come back to interact and engage with the students, do networking, fairs, things of that nature, but they are preferring to do online interviewing at this particular time. Even our organization sees the value in doing virtual interviewing. So you're not seeing as many companies come back to do the in-person interview from that. But I found that very interesting, the way that different organizations are thinking about that moving forward. 14% saying, you know, we're just going to keep doing it entirely, or excuse me, 16% will continue doing it entirely virtually, where 14% said, no, I'm going to go back to the way it was before COVID. One of the things you heard from companies saying, well, you know, our acquisition and cost per hires are going to go down. Well, in fact, the employer said quite the opposite, which was very surprising. 46% of organizations reported the average cost per hire increase. Now, how could that be? Now, there could be a question as to what are you including in your cost per hire metrics. We found about half of the employers didn't even calculate it, which again was quite surprising as well. So why is it that the cost per hire is increasing if people aren't coming to campus and traveling and doing all the things that they did, especially with interviewing and so forth? So one possibility, and we asked this, were the college recruiting platforms. So when I mean college recruiting platform, these would be like a Handshake, Simplicity. There's others that are out there. We asked the 2,000 organizations that responded, how many of you have a paid account? 47% said yes. So just from my experience at Wake Forest with Handshake, we knew companies were paying anywhere between 30 to 100,000 a year for this software as a service model, but there is no guarantee that you're going to land individuals from that. And I got some more slides that talks a little bit about it, but perhaps that may be why some of the cost went up. I think Handshake did a marvelous job of pivoting during COVID and embracing the virtual recruiting, and that made things very good for their organization. But there were some byproducts that occurred from that, and we'll go over that here. So is using these platforms helps your organization achieve better recruiting results? My theory is most of the ones that are saying not well at all, they're going to be the smaller organizations, and the ones that are extremely well, very well, are the big boys, the people that are paying the 100,000+ a year from that. So it's kind of mixed there when you're looking at it. One of the fears that a lot of career centers had is that Handshake and virtual recruiting, there would be no need to come on campus anymore. If all the students' resumes are in Handshake, companies are going to recruit virtually, just like they did during COVID. Would they even come to campus anymore, and would they interact with career centers? Well, what you're seeing is, you know, the respondents feel like that they still need to work with college career centers, that they're getting value out of these individuals. And then, does it provide a good return on your investment? again, kind of split. I think it probably has to do with larger and smaller size organizations and the number of hires they would get. Again, if you got a small organization paying on the low end of that 30,000, they may not get anybody during that time. Meanwhile, someone paying 100,000, if they're getting 1,000 hires through a handshake, then very much would be worth it. Allows your organization to achieve greater diversity in its candidate pool. Again, nothing significant one way or the other with that. What else did they say? Too few applicants, not the right type. Students don't use the platform. They're not engaged, which you hear a lot from career centers as well. Issues with the user interface. It's hard to navigate this new technology and so forth. And it's just too costly, as I alluded to before. The people that really liked it, they said it's overall efficient. They can access students, especially outside their normal location, because of the posting to all the different schools in the network as well. And Handshake was most mentioned as kind of the leader, yet there were comments for improvement. So in closing, before we turn this over to Don, I just want to say, Phil and I say, this is a microcosm, what I've just shared with you. There's only about 1,500 organizations of usable responses that we can use in there. We want to caution you of extrapolating that, saying that that's the entire market. But we've been doing this for 52 years now, and it is one of the industry standards. So we feel pretty good about what we're producing here. Again, September was the time frame. There's a lot of things that have happened since that time. So be mindful and aware of that. And so many different issues. Joey just heard yesterday with some of the additional announcements by the Fed. It's causing the economy to go upside and down. You have a lot of the tech companies beginning to lay off individuals and others. So people are a little skittish right now, especially during the holidays here. So that's the report. If you have a question, I'll be glad to answer that. I'll check through that. But before then, you know, if your organization is trying to figure out, you know, what do I do for the upcoming year? I'd be glad to sit down with you, have a consultative session to review your strategy, benchmark against the competition, and help plan for the upcoming year. I did this a lot with employers when I was in the career center space, and we do this for our clients now that work with us. So if anyone has any interest in that, there's my contact information. You can contact me directly. I see one question that's available. Someone's asked about internships. So I do have the slide that will be in there with internships. One of the key things about internships is there's not enough internships to go around. If you think about it, you got freshmen, sophomores, juniors. They're all looking for internships, but only seniors are looking for full-time. A lot of companies don't invest in internship programs. They don't have the resources to do it to where they can automatically convert those individuals. And so one of the things that you're also seeing from this research is that organizations are trying to find different, what's been called non-traditional pipelines of talent. They're not freshmen, sophomores, juniors. They may have taken some time off, especially during COVID, or they got some type of certification. They're not in the normal labor pools of where they're typically looking. And you're seeing organizations trying to invest a little bit more into that. The other thing, trend with internships is you got a lot of colleges and universities that are trying to incorporate service learning and study abroads and project-based work and micro internships. While those things are great, our study actually showed that employers are less interested in those things as qualifiable experiences that they will consider when evaluating and the candidate. So it tells us, and I had a colleague for a SEC school that is trying to put some of this stuff together, and she was asking a little bit more about it. And I said, well, I think there's a disconnect between what the schools think the employers want and what the employers really want. And I said, I think if you were to put more emphasis on the credential and certificate, at least from this survey, that's going to get more employers interested and involved. But there's an ulterior motive between these colleges because they want to tie credits to it. They want to get individuals to stay in school for retention purposes and so forth. And they want to try and model some of the things that they're doing for ranking purposes as well. So it's an interesting thing. So you'll be able to see that in the handout as well. So not seeing any more questions here. I'm going to turn it over to Don, if you could. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you so much, Stuart. That information is so valuable. And one of the things that we'll look at is why it will be important to continue to engage your pipeline earlier in a student's college experience. So in the next probably 7 minutes, I'm going to go over some career and professional development type programming strategies that you could adopt. We're hearing that a lot of employers last year were suffering from students who ghosted them or never just showed up when it was time for them to start their new employment opportunity, just because the employment market was so hot. So what we'll do is share on our screen the slides that I'll go over. Stuart, will you show those, or should I go ahead and share on my screen? I will show on my screen then.
Sorry, Don, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you give me share, and I'll share the.
Can you see it there now?
Oh yeah, there we go. Great.
Yeah, I apologize.
No, so we'll look at the next screen. Next slide. That's just some background information on what I have been involved in terms of focusing on career and professional development. And writing books and articles in the college environment. And the next screen, we'll take a look at the first program in which you could adopt in your pipeline. It's the Grad Career Festival. So if you've got a student who you have in the pipeline or one that you're bringing on board, we started hosting a decade ago a 36-hour, it's actually a 2-month-long online career event that features 72 top career authors and experts. These are authors that talk about the job search process, the soft skills they'll need to advance their career, business acumen, and things that they will need in order to support and land as a employee and start working effectively. This is something that you could give a free ticket to those students that you are hiring or to students that are in your pipeline. So think about that. We'll take a look at the next slide, another tool that you could engage your students that you are hiring. The next slide will indicate a career speaker series, and the career speaker series is a weekly lecture series that will encourage your students to improve their soft skills, ethics, leadership, teamwork, how to conduct a meeting, time management, things that they'll need to expand their career, startup and business management strategies, career changes, how to deal with difficult people, and personal health and wealth kind of strategies. So if you're, again, looking to have a way in which you can show a prospective student that you want to hire or a student that you have hired that you are committed to their career, you could offer a free subscription to those students. On the next slide, we'll actually see one of my favorite programs that are available to your organization. There's actually research that showed something like 39% of organizations do not have an onboarding process for their new college hires. And what we've developed is a 12-month onboarding program that actually will provide, as you can see on screen with their arrows pointing, a 12-month program that focuses on assessment, soft skills, advice and personal coaching, intrapreneur and entrepreneurial strategies, as well as podcasts, sales and communication strategies, and career management techniques. So if you're looking for a way to, again, onboard someone, show the company's commitment to them. This is a turnkey program. We handle everything. The training budget from the department that individual is hired into will be the one that will support that program. On the next slide, the fourth item that you could adopt is a really unique tool that utilizes the students and grads' mobile phones. And we usually encourage companies like yours to adopt this in November. November is considered the career month. And it's a month that everyone celebrates career and professional development programming. This is a mobile tool that is built around challenges. So on a daily basis, students and your recent hires would get essentially a challenge, career-related, soft skill-related, and information that they can pick up and absorb and continue to develop. So that's a fourth tool. The fifth tool that you could adopt, and in the next slide, is something that is related to developing a relationship with the parents of the students that you would like to hire. I know the Big Seven have programs where they start to engage parents and students starting their freshman year, some as early as graduates of high schools. In this particular case, though, we provide a copy of our book, The Unemployed Grad, and what parents can do about it. The book was really written as a way to help parents understand their role is to drive the student to the Career Center. There's actually a research, and you may be aware of it, that students that do take advantage of the Career Center get more engaged in career and professional development support earlier in their college career, end up getting jobs by the time they graduate. So if you were looking to develop a relationship with parents who have influence over what their students are going to do or what career path they'll take or what company they'll work in, this would be another option for you to be able to engage both the students and the parents earlier. And in the next slide, the sixth item in which you could adopt doesn't necessarily affect the things that you want to do to acquire current grads. This is one in which your colleagues in the HR department may want to take advantage of in order to be able to hire second-year grads, third-year grads, or alumni who have 20, 30 years experience, and that's through the alumni job board. It's a job board that your team, HR team, can post jobs and attract alumni who are experienced workers to the positions that you have available for them. So all of those 6 items are available. And of course, in this recording, you'll have the downloads and the PowerPoint available. And on the next slide, you'll find a kind of a summary of the things that you can do based on what we're talking about. The 4 different suggestions are based on those 6 different solutions that we offered. And then as a final point on the final slide is my contact information. Reach out to me either on LinkedIn or send an email to me on don@talentmarks.com on the final slide. So that is it. Thank you all. I'll turn it back to Stuart for a wrap up and a reminder that you will get the recording and follow-up information and data that you can share with your colleagues.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for joining us. We're here to help and assist. Don and I are both very passionate about helping organizations and young people, or all people, get connected to employment opportunities. So as Don said, stay in touch. Our contact information was included there. And we'll be sending out slides and information after this as well. So again, thanks for your time today. Have a great holiday and hope to see you in early 2023. Thank you.